Alright, back to some random stuff. We got 16 random shows left. So let's see what we roll. 14 randoms and then 2 end caps. So let's see what we roll next. 4. Liar, Liar. I don't remember anyone talking about this show. What? I'm curious what it's about.
Oh, I used to love tsunderes at one point, and then at some point, the massive repetition of them wholesale with no personality changes whatsoever just completely beat that love out of me. I made it about a quarter of the way through the first episode of Liar Liar. This show is so fucking boring. It is just, the main character has no personality whatsoever. At first I thought he was going to have personality, but then it turned out no, he doesn't. There's so much fucking exposition and it feels so contrived as to why there is so much exposition. It's like the main character just straight up says, "No, I ignored all of the tutorial stuff that was supposed to teach me how this island worked. Fuck off." I knew this show was not going to be creative when I learned that the place where this takes place is called Academy Island. Fucking stellar naming convention there. Fuck, man. That was unpleasant. The animation is mediocre. It's not terrible yet, but it is so bland and lifeless. This is just so... Ugh. It's just a real bad mixture of boring and annoying. Let's move on.
Alright, Liar Liar, off the list. Bye-bye. Crank down the random number generator and see what we roll next. 9. The Masterful Cat is depressed again today. Okay, this is one of 2 Gohan's shows, I believe, from this season. I already know about the other one, but let's figure out this one.
Alright, I actually made it through a full episode of The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again. Which, by the way, that title makes absolutely no goddamn sense, because the cat is never depressed about anything. Like, it's it's like mild frustration at his owner. But I'm kind of split on this one. On the one hand, it is decently funny here and there, not hugely funny, but I got a few laughs out of that episode. The humor was decently good, and you know what? The character designs are really cute for the girls, and I do like the way that the Masterful Cat, this giant fucking cat housekeeper, moves around and acts. And then the Gohan stuff starts. If you're unfamiliar, we'll probably talk more about it when we get to The Girl I Like Forgot Her Glasses. Gohan started off as just a normal-ass studio, making normal-ass anime. One of their more normal anime is Seito Kaiyaku and Domo, which is probably my favorite Gohan's anime. And then something happened. I believe it was in the same year they made 2 shows. They made Coppelion, which was a giant flop, and then they made K, which was a huge fucking success. Now, I haven't seen K, but I know that it is absolutely wild with its animation. And then they made a bunch of K sequels and spin-offs and everything. And then Handshakers happened. If you're not familiar with Handshakers, don't be. It is one of the most vomit-inducing anime I have ever seen from a visual standpoint. It is physically hard to look at Handshakers because of what Gohan's does. They don't understand shot composition. They don't understand frame rates. They don't understand how to make the camera move in a way that makes any goddamn sense. At least back then they did. And over the years, they have refined that particular technique. We're not getting any Seito Kayaku and Domos anymore. We're not getting any Coppelians anymore. We're not getting normal anime from Gohans anymore. We are getting this weird-ass bonkers shit where the camera is floating all over the goddamn place, where we have weird fucking shot composition, half of which is like fisheye lensed half the time. We've got this absolutely disgusting color palette that's like a combination of like green, purple, red, and gray. And it's just the most disgusting color palette possible. And it's like, and there's always a ton of CG objects so that they can do these really wacky things with the camera. Like the opening like highway shot in this is totally indicative of that. And like the worst part of this is like the animators at Gohan's, I think, are talented. Like they can actually handle the workload that's given to them. But the artistic direction, the storyboarding, the layouts, the stuff that makes up the fundamental building blocks of the animation before the actual animation takes place is so fucking bad and bonkers. And just difficult to look at. And then they add that shitty fucking color palette on top of it. And it just becomes borderline unwatchable. And you know what? Of the Gohan shows that look like this, this might be the best looking one. And it still hurts to look at sometimes. For me, it's mostly the color palette. It's fucking disgusting. But I feel bad for the people who work at this studio because I think they could be legitimately talented animators if they worked under someone with competent directing. Because the people who are in charge of that studio right now do not know what the fuck they're doing. So, like, for as decent a comedy as Masterful Cat is, I just cannot watch a whole season of it because it would break my brain. Also, like, we get this very long, just shot opening scene that's just different shots of the main character going to work. And like we don't see the cat at all. We just see like a shadow of the cat when he's waking her up for work. And it's all these different scenes of just her moving to work, which by the way, the color palette changes like 5 different times during this sequence. It's disorienting. And then it's like fade to black, fade back at a shot of the sky, and then like little bloop sound effect with the title just on screen out of fucking nowhere. We still haven't met the cat, by the way, but now we see this title, The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again, today. Like, common sense would have you hold off on that if you're going to hold off on the title until well into the episode, you put the title after the cat reveal, right? That makes sense, right? But they just plop it in out of nowhere. And it makes no goddamn sense. And it hurts my brain. And I want it to stop hurting my brain. So I'm gonna stop talking about it now.
Okay, Masterful Cat off the list. Gonna roll another random and see what we get. It is 12. Alright, Sound Euphonium Ensemble Contest. This is like a 50-minute OVA, I believe, as a lead into Season 3. Let's watch some UFO.
Yep, I love that KyoAni is still the party equivalent of shows up to the party, does sick ass dance move, says nothing, leaves. Just watched the Euphonium OVA ensemble contest. That was good. That was really good. It's basically exactly what you would expect from a 50-minute UFO OVA. We got some really nice Reina Kumiko moments where we see like the more complex give and takes of their friendship, I guess you could say, where it's like they're starting to be a little more upfront with their insecurities towards each other, I guess, which was really fun. And also just the banter is still really good. Really good, like, just high school level banter. It's fun. I like when people actually know how to write high schoolers properly. It makes me happy. Instead of just writing them like adults, but children. Yeah. Honestly, not a whole lot to say about this one in particular, other than I guess it's good to see more KyoAni again. Like I didn't watch Tsurune Season 2 because I didn't really get far in the first season. So, before this, the most recent KyoAni thing I watched was Dragon Maid Season 2, and that was in 2021. And I think I might have watched the Violet Evergarden OVA, the movie, slightly after that. So, it's been a hot minute since I've seen new KyoAni stuff. I did recently rewatch all of UFO with my dad and my sister for our anime night stuff. All of that still really holds up, and this is right up there with it. Just some really great, really low-key but really solid character writing. A lot of really good acting. Not just in voice acting, but also in the actual character acting, the animation to show not just through dialogue how these characters feel, but conveying their emotions through their gestures, through the way they stand, through the way they walk. Stuff that KyoAni is really fucking good at, and continues to be really fucking good at, because this OVA is so incredibly detailed and gorgeous looking. Really smart use of CG. That never really detracts from the experience. Mostly in how vehicles and background, moving background animation. Just the opening shots of this was just oh right, KyoAni is the best and nobody can touch them. I forgot. It's been a while. I forgot that they are just a league above. I also kind of liked that Kumiko and Reina's ensemble didn't win. They got the popularity vote, but they didn't get the student vote. It was just some random clarinet quartet won. So that was amusing to me, and also like just I like that it's also like these aren't a super group kind of people. They're just really good, but they're not like unstoppable. Our main characters are not unstoppable. So that was neat. The music itself wasn't super amazing this time around. It wasn't bad, but like it didn't grab me like maybe like the ensemble piece from season 1, or like Liz and the Bluebird, or Asuka's like Euphonium solo. It was still good though. Yeah, Euphonium's still really good. I think third season is in the spring, I think. Whenever it's happening, I'm absolutely looking forward to it.
Alright, UFO OVA is complete. And where did I say I was going to put it? I'm going to put it right in here in the number 10 spot for now, with a decent 8. Just really solid showing from KyoAni, as expected. Also, I completely forgot that I had watched the Love Live Nijigasaki OVA and just forgot to put it on the list. I forgot that was from 2023. I watched it forever ago, so I can't give you like a thing other than it good. It's more Nijigasaki. Appreciated the Shioriko character line and had some banger songs in it. So it got a strong 7. Alright. Down to 11 randoms left. Let's see what we get next. 1. Am I actually the strongest? So this is either an isekai or just a general fantasy, I'm gonna bet. Let's give it a go.
Have you ever watched something and thought, wow, this might actually be good if there was any kind of like thought or talent behind it whatsoever? Yeah, that's Am I Actually the Strongest? Which is thankfully they don't spend fucking forever on the reincarnating part of the isekai. I like paused it when it happened, and it was like less than 30 seconds into the first episode. Which on the one hand, I'm happy you didn't waste my time with something that you clearly didn't care about. But on the other hand, it gives us absolutely no information about this character other than shut-in otaku, and it just leaves it at that. And the character really doesn't get fleshed out past that. In what I've seen, like, he doesn't... Who the character is doesn't inform how he uses his power. And the power is, like, super OP to the point of being, like, not even fun to watch, because it's basically just, like, he's got barrier powers, but it's like, oh, but they can... barriers just do everything now. You can throw barriers at people, you can turn them into animals... that fly around and shit. You can use them to pick up objects and throw them, and it's like, why not just give that? That's just telekinesis at that point. It's so boring and lame, and also the animation is not good. Like, it does. On the surface, it might seem totally, like, mid and mediocre, but every once in a while, you get one of those shots where it looks like the character is just looking straight through you into the void. And it's so disquieting and unnerving. It's like, this could have been fun. Maybe. It might have been fun if there was, like, if anyone behind this project knew what they were doing. But no, that's this just feels like another one that's being churned out for the sake of being churned out. So fuck it, let's move on.
Alright. Actually, the strongest, no you're not, off the list. Got 10 more randoms, and then our 2 uncaps. Let's see what's next. 2. The Dreaming Boy is a Realist. It's another one that I've heard no one talk about from this season. I think it's some kind of school comedy. Let's give it a go.
Okay, can someone explain to me where the humor is in this show? I got like a quarter of the way through the first episode of The Dreaming Boy is a Realist. And I'm pretty sure I'm watching things that are supposed to be comedy, but just are not. So the opening, thrust of this show is apparently that this guy just stalks this girl all the time and is constantly asking her out. And suddenly, he just decides to stop doing that. And it, shocks everyone. To the point where, this isn't what... They're, basically saying, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. Why aren't you doing the stalking thing? Which, 1, what the fuck? 2, we didn't see any of this beforehand. We saw him talking to her once. And then, a soccer ball almost hits his head. And then suddenly he just doesn't want to anymore. If you're going to establish that this is a normal behavior that is being broken, you kind of have to show it. You can't just tell us that he did it, because it doesn't have any impact. Also, that's not how anyone would react in this scenario. For fuck's sake. No.
Okay. Dreaming Boy is a Realist. Off the list. We're going to do 2 more randos for this video, so let's see what we roll next. 7. Ayaka. Absolutely no clue what this is. Let's jump in and find out.
Yeah, I have basically nothing to say about that one. I got halfway through the first episode and it was super generic, supernatural action anime. Nothing about it stands out in any way. The characters are not engaging in any way. The designs are super boring. The animation's bland, the artwork's bland. Nothing is hooking me about the story or the characters or anything. That's just... There is nothing here. There's nothing. It is hollow. Someone decided that this needed to be an anime. And for the life of me, I can't imagine why.
Alright. Ayaka's off the list. We're going to do 1 more random before we do our end cap show. And it's going to be 4. Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence. I think this is a Doga Kobo comedy series. Looking forward to whether it's good or not.
Alright, just finished up all of Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence. That was a fun little rom-com slice-of-life series. Before I jump into the show itself, though, I want to briefly mention that this is probably one of the best examples of localization I've seen in a while, because the original title in Japanese is Shiroseijo to Kurobokushi, which translates to White Saint and Black Pastor, which makes absolutely no fucking sense. Like, it only makes sense in the absolute most literal sense of the saint sometimes wears white and the pastor sometimes wears black. Because, like, it doesn't make sense at all in terms of, like, the more obvious, like, personalities of the characters. Because, like, in particular for the Pastor Lawrence, because he's not black as in, like, dark or evil, and he's not black as in, like, depressed or, like, melancholic or anything. So the original Japanese title just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I don't know how the author came up with this other than it's a very generic title scheme. So thankfully in English this series was renamed to Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence. Much better title for a good show. This was a fun little rom-com. I didn't know it was going to be a rom-com at first, actually, so that was a nice little surprise. It's very straightforward in its rom-comness of, like, the Saint Cecilia is very obviously in love with Lawrence, but Lawrence just is totally dense and completely missing all of the romantic cues. But I think they do kind of a decent job of conveying why he is so dense in the matter of, like, he's a priest, so he's not, like, super in the realm of, like, love, I guess. Although I guess in this world, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with priests having relationships in this world. It's a very ambiguous Christianity that they do in this. Like, it doesn't seem to be Catholic by any stretch. And they don't ever, like, read any particular scriptures, like no Bible quotes or anything. It's just like generic fictional Christianity. So it's mostly just there for the setting. And so, like, we get this concept of, like, we have this pastor who is so reverent of the saints in this world, who are basically, like, kind of divine beings that help out in vaguely supernatural ways. That he is so reverent of these beings that he just completely misses the fact that one might be in love with him. So it was a decent workaround for the dense protagonist character. Aside from that, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this particular series. It's just fun. It's a fun Doga Kobo slice of life rom-com. This one is definitely much more in the vein of, like, what I would expect from a Doga Kobo production than something like Oshinoko, where it's, like, more simplistic character designs, very bright and, like, very bright pastel kind of colors, this very, like, chill vibe to everything. Although I will say that it didn't have a whole lot of, like, animation either. Like, it's not necessarily an issue. Like, there were some fun little, like, character acting moments here and there, but, like, there wasn't a lot of really interesting, like, specific cuts, like, of character acting, of, like, character animation and so on and so forth. But it was still very pleasant to look at. Really fun character designs that were, like, a step above generic, and they were really polished and just, like, there's something to be said about a generic design that is polished to the most, not necessarily polished, but, like, refined to the most top form that it could be. And I think that's a good description of these character designs. Like, yeah, it's just it's a fun rom-com. It does get a little repetitive as it goes on, but we also get more hints that, like, the pastor is slowly starting to figure out how he feels about Cecilia. We don't really get a confession at the end of the series, so that was, or at the end of the season, so that was a little disappointing. But you just kind of gotta roll with them. Sometimes you just gotta be. It's a rom-com anime. I'm not expecting a confession at the end of every season, although I would certainly like it. I'm starting to be spoiled by other series that actually do stuff like that, like Horibia. But it's a fun little rom-com series. We do get some, like, slightly more serious elements in terms of, like, some mild character building into, like, how the loneliness of certain characters before they come into contact with other people, and how connections shape each of the lives of the people that they interact with, so on and so forth. And there was a nice little... We do get some nice little world building here and there about how the saints are, like, perceived in this world, and how sometimes that can lead to some issues with overly deifying them to the point where it becomes a hassle, to the point where it becomes where, like, one of the saints ends up dying because the people around her thought that she was just a god who couldn't die, I guess, who couldn't be injured. So that was a fun little... The world building throughout this is really fun. But yeah, I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel to talk about this show, because it very much is just as it comes. It's a light, fluffy Doga Kobo rom-com with some decent character building behind it. I had fun.
Alright, Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence is complete. We're not going to go too high up on this one. We're going to put it in the number 30 spot for this year with a light 7. Just a fun little Doga Kobo rom-com. Could have been a little more interesting, but just nice fun vibes. And now, we got our next end cap coming up here. So, Undead Girl Murder Farce. This was probably the big artsy one of last season, or the summer season, I guess, from a director I really like. Let's see if I end up enjoying it.
Oh yeah, that was really damn good. I just finished all of Undead Girl Murder Farce, which is a mystery action comedy series from who is now definitely one of my favorite directors, Shinichi Omata, also known as Mamoru Hatagayama. I believe that's who it is. It's the same director who did Rakugo Shinju and Kaguya-sama, which are also two of my favorites. And this might also be another favorite of mine now. So, man just pulled a fucking hat trick. I mean, let's talk about that. That is definitely one of, like, the big appeals of this murder mystery in particular, aside from, like, the actual story elements, is this is just a really fun series to look at. Like, Hatagayama is starting to have, like, a very interesting style as opposed to, like, other directors in the field. Like, he really loves mild experimentation, whether it's with split screens or just, I don't know exactly what you call it, but, like, fucking with the frames, the aspect ratio of the frames, having multiple frames on screen at once, having different frames interact with each other in interesting ways, or just having like these very interesting color choices that are not even meant to be symbolic, but just are kind of there to look cool and are there to be like more of a an emotional thrust to something rather than like a thematic or narrative thrust. There's a lot of really cool POV shots in this of characters looking through things. Like, there's a shot of a character looking through like a set of like chain links. There's one, obviously, of the main detective character looking through the bars of the cage. A lot of really interesting transitional shots. It's like there was this one shot where it transitioned from the POV of the character blinking to the character to a shot of outside the cage as the cage is opening up, I think, or something like that. This is just a really, really cool series to look at. And like this, I think Kaguya-sama, before this show, Kaguya-sama was seasons 2 and 3, especially season 3, was definitely like the biggest, was the most obvious version of this style, but he's really taken it to a whole new level in here. Like, if you remember, it's either, I believe it's season 3 of Kaguya-sama where he does like the really terrible green screen effect where it looks like it's an intentionally bad green screen of the character of, fuck, what's the maid's name? Hayasaka. It's like her on like an intentionally bad green screen. They do that effect like multiple times in this show. Some better than others, but it still looks, overall, it's just a really fucking good looking series. And it's a really well produced series too. Like, really the only time this show starts to look iffy is when it goes for like these really ambitious action cuts. Where it's like the whole scenery is moving around them along with the characters who are doing the action. There's very little CG in this at all. It's, the animation is just so, the artwork is so on point and so crisp and clean. That's another Haragayama staple I've noticed is the colors are very deep and saturated looking. I don't quite remember if Rakugo Shinju did that, but now I think I am overdue for a Rakugo rewatch because this show also had some like Rakugo moments in it, or rather like the main character Tsugaru like just fucks with people through telling Rakugo stories as they're like traveling places. Like, this was just such a fun series to look at and a fun series to watch and like listen to. All of the characters in this are super fun and engaging. Like, the only character who's like not like a really fun weirdo is, what's her name? Shizuku, the attendant character. She's just kind of like a very straight, stone-faced, don't take no guff anything kind of character. But she was still fun to see other characters interact with, especially Tsugaru, just constantly at each other like cats and dogs. Our main detective character, Aya, really fits the role of the like uber confident super detective so well, while also having some really fun banter and just like, I think she uses like the same jokes over and over again, but she uses them in a way of like, this is a character like one of your relatives who tells the same joke over and over again. It's like that, kind of. but it was still funny every time, to be honest. Really loved all the banter in this show. All the characters are super fun. Speaking of characters, I was not prepared for the second arc of this show. It's like, the first arc, like after the first introductory episode, the first arc is like this very tightly knit, tightly paced, very closed off vampire murder mystery kind of thing. And I was like, okay, this is a really fun murder mystery kind of show. Like, I'm following the murder mystery pretty well. I actually correctly guessed the who the bad guy was, who the murderer was. Like, it almost felt this is definitely a lot easier to follow the mystery than other shows. Like, it's definitely a lot easier than Inspector. A lot easier to follow. Also a lot easier to follow than like Rompo's stuff in Bungo Stray Dogs. Almost to the point of being too easy, but it still keeps you like nicely engaged as you're like going along, and you still go, there are still some twists to make me go like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's so cool. Like the holy water ice pick was so cool of an idea because it only makes sense for this specific mystery because it was a vampire family. That was so fun. And then the second arc happened. And the second arc is what I can only describe as public domain fan fiction. We got Sherlock Holmes and Watson. We got Jack the Ripper. We got Arsène Lupin. We got Frankenstein. Fucking... God, who else was in it? Phileas Fogg, who was apparently the main character from Around the World in 80 Days. Fuck, I'm missing some. I know there were some other... Oh, Aleister Crowley is in this, who is a real person, but I guess also counts as a fictional character somehow. The Phantom of the Opera was in this. Just like all of these like late 19th century characters all coming into one big story. I think Frankenstein's actually a lot older than that, but I'm not quite sure. But just this giant melting pot of public domain characters having it out in this big heist scenario that turns into this giant battle bloodbath. Speaking of which, they are not afraid to like just kill people in this series. Not like big name character deaths, but there was like one character that dies in the second arc. I was like, oh, they just straight up fucking murked them. Jesus. Yeah, that second arc was just so bonkers and insane. Like when they squeeze in like a red ogre and blue ogre joke, and I just did like the fucking Leo meme of like pointing at the screen like, ugh, they did the thing. Ugh. I was like, you smarmy little shits. This is what the public domain was made for. The public domain exists so that we can get wild fucking shit like this, where Arsène Lupin and the Phantom of the Opera are teaming up to steal a diamond from underneath the nose of Sherlock Holmes, while Moriarty and Frankenstein and Jack the Ripper are trying to also steal the diamond so that they can go find a werewolf village. Holy shit. That rules. And you know what? If it wasn't this director, this probably would have been the lamest shit imaginable. Like on paper, that sounds equally cool as it does equally lame and corny. Because, like, I think obviously a lot of this also, the original novel author does bear a lot of like, what's the word? Should get a lot of credit for it as well for writing these characters in such an interesting way originally, but also just the way that everything is shot, the way that the dialogue comes out. It never feels overly hammy, but it never feels too serious. It's like this perfect middle ground of like dramatic and comedic, without getting too like ham-fisted with everything. And it was just a absolute blast to watch. And then the third arc, I thought it was gonna lose me in the third arc, but because like it's pretty obvious right from the get-go who the culprit is in the third arc. But then, like, it's not, the who wasn't the interesting part of the third arc. I'm actually like gonna dance around this because I think it's just really fascinating. Like, it was more so the how and the why of the third, of why this character comes back and just starts murdering people and pitting and just ruining people's lives. And really, it's has a lot of really like once that reveal hits of the why, like the very last why, at during like the final talk between Aya and this character, you really it really like hammers home like the oh wow, oh that hits, that was really fucking good, that, and you like you kind of want this character to get away in the end. Um, I'll let you watch the show to figure out if they do. It was just it's so weird. Like I thought I was gonna come down hard on this third arc, but then that last episode just completely revitalized my opinion about all of it. Uh, yeah, I think this was the season of me uh, starting to enjoy mystery series finally. Either again from a long time, from like for the longest time, not enjoying them, or for the first time, because I don't really know if I ever like really truly enjoyed mystery series like I am now. Between Ranpo in Bungo Stray Dogs and Undead Girl Murder Farce with Aya and Sherlock Holmes. That was a really fun portrayal of Sherlock Holmes, by the way. Not the most unique portrayal, but they got the acting that was really solid. The writing was really solid. And I love that in the middle of all of these fucking public domain characters, we have the author's OC Donut Steel characters right in the middle of all of it, and they're just a whole bunch of fun. Uh, oh, and so this is another show with really solid audio, both like in the voice acting and in the music. Like the voice acting, there's not a lot of like big dramatic performances in this one, but like they just have the right. It sounds like everyone's having fun. It really sounds like everyone on this cast is having a ton of fun voicing these characters, especially Tsugaru's voice actor. I forget what his name is. I think it was Taku something. Taku Yoshi. I'm not even gonna try to remember. Um, he's just pitch perfect casting for this wackadoodle, half Oni, badass comedic character. Just loved that. Um, and then the music was so good and so weird and like spanning so many different genres. I think it was Yuma. Fuck, I forgot what the character. Yuta. It's either Yuma or Yuta Yamaguchi. Who I don't think I have actually heard any of their music before. Their Mal list was very short. So very interesting. I will definitely be looking out for this composer in the future. Man, this was... I'm glad that I used this as like one of the end caps for this wrap-up show. Just because I saw... And I only knew about it because I saw people talking about it on Twitter, and because I knew that it was... And I heard that this was from the Kaguya director. I was like, alright, we're going to have some fun here. And boy, oh boy, did we have some fun.
Alright, Undead Girl Murder Farce is complete. We're going to scroll all the way up here to the number 4 spot for the year. And you're getting a light 9. Another new favorite. And this is the first, like, new IP that's a new favorite for me. So, good job, Hatakeyama and everyone involved. That was a really damn fun show.